Build along of the Conowingo models, Kello Station in both HO and O scales. Um, there's still time to order. I still have some in stock. So if you go to conowingomodels.com and use Jim HO in the discount section, you'll get the HO scale kit at a discount, or Jim O for the O scale kit. And that is not valid on any other items, and it's good through June 15th, which will be the last build. Excuse me, as you're seeing in the upper left corner there, the gray and red building is actually the HO scale version, and the white and yellow is the O scale version. I was actually pleasantly surprised at how that yellow came out, because with yellow, it's one of those colors you're never quite sure. All right. And then, so there's a couple more glory shots of it. All right, so we're going to start out, there are episode summaries. We're going to start out in episode 1. We'll do research, planning, cut out the parts, bracing, and then painting. And there's actually going to be a bit of homework on this one. It'll slacken off a little bit. This is pretty much the heaviest episode. In episode 2, we cover window and door prep, shingling the roof, and then end wall assembly. And then in episode 3, we do the main building assembly and adding the roof. And then in episode 4, we finish it up with finishing touches and details. So again, in episode 1, we're going to research and plan our colors, cut out the parts, and then organize the colors by your color choice, parts by your color choice. Then we'll move on to bracing, and then some parts prep, and do some painting. As a warning, a lot of these pictures are of the pilot models, and so if you end up with if you are assembling a kit, the parts that you are looking at in the kit may not look exactly like they do in these photos. That's because as I went along and figured out how I was going to build this thing and found errors in the kit, I improved on them. So what you'll have is the new and improved version, where the pictures may not actually be that way. And some of the photos are actually of a slightly different build. And so you go, wait a minute, mine doesn't look like that. Don't worry about that. Don't panic. Just follow along. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is research. This building is fictional, so you have a number of choices. You could do it for your chosen railroad. It could be for a fictional railroad. What I found works best is choosing a minimum of 2 colors, or 3 primary colors. That is for, and by primary, I'm not talking blue, yellow, and red. I'm talking about, well, you could use those colors, but I'm talking about first, second, and third color choices for how you're going to do this. Because if you notice, a lot of these buildings on here are set up that same way. And then we're not going to cover it, but something you need to think about in the research phase is, are you going to light it, or are you going to do something a little different? Are you going to modify it in some way? So those are all things you need to do in the research phase. All right, next up, we get into cutting out the parts. And what you want to do is you want to categorize the parts by the color that they're to be painted. You'll see in the bottom, you've got the bracing with your strip wood. You've got your all of your bracing. We decided to, you'll notice that there is a some of the decorative trim is also in this category. And don't forget about the feet down below. Now, one thing that that you're going to see as you're cutting these parts out, those 2 parts on the left, first of all, one of them, it lost a little bit of the top to it. If that happens, don't worry about it. But what you don't want to do is, there are 2 cleats on the bottom of the feet. And then also those 2 pieces on the far left there, those will also have cleats in them. Basically, what you're going to do is, when you, after you have this kit assembled, you're going to drop it into place on that concrete pad, and it should fit right snug in there. You've got your ridge beam, which it's numbered, but it does not need to be painted. Of course, you've got your walls, and you want to put all those together. Your gingerbread and your trim there. You want to put that stuff together, assuming that you want to paint those all the same color. And then the roofing, you could end up with either 2 or 4 pieces of roofing. I think we're going to go over that here in a minute. And then this is the O scale. Yeah, you also want to cover your wrought iron finial. That can be categorized separately. Be careful with the wrought iron piece because it's fragile. I've actually destroyed the one on the O scale kit about 3 times now, and luckily I've been able to glue it back together again. But don't do as I do. Just be careful with it. And also don't forget about your doors and windows and how you want to categorize those. All right, so then you're going to start out with the brace the long pieces of the gingerbread trim. The reason we're going to do this is because you don't want to confuse for the O scale kit. It's got 1/8 inch strip wood that is it's got 2 pieces that are longer than the rest of them, and you want to go ahead and put those 2 together so that they don't get lost in the shuffle. But anyway, you want to also do that with the HO scale kit, although it's 1/16. So you want to glue it as I've shown in this picture here. Try to do a little bit better job to get the top snugged up. Excuse me. Next, we're going to trim the board and batten. Can't really tell in these photos, but what you want to do is use an example door and window, and also one of those pieces of the triangular shaped gingerbread to outline on the outer walls where those contact the board and batten. Then you're going to want to use, I think it's an X-Acto number 17 straight blade or something like that, to cut off the batten at that point. So basically what's going to end up happening is the doors and walls, or the doors and windows, sit flat on the walls without any obstructions. I actually tried it with my regular number 11 blade, and that's what you're looking at here. But if I did a little research and I found if you use the number 17 or basically a straight flat edge, it'll work a lot better. Next up, we're going to do bracing on the number 3 wall supports. If you notice, all the wall supports are numbered, and also the ridge beam is numbered. You're going to need that information later. So what you're going to do is you're going to add the feet, and then again, notice the cleats. You want those feet added into the number 3s at a 90-degree angle. You want to add the piece of strip wood onto both sides, and on one piece, leave room on the outside for the board and batten. So you're going to want to basically take that triangle. You see the yellow piece over here on the left. You're going to want to make sure that is going to be able to sit flush with that piece of bracing. And then with these, with the feet and where they contact that strip wood, you're going to want to add a little bit of wood filler or something in there, and you might want to sand it down too to basically make that line disappear. I didn't do a very good job of that on this one, but learn from my mistakes. So that covers that. Basically what that'll do is it'll add rigidity to those wall braces, because that 1/16 basswood it'll just curl and do all kinds of other weird things if you don't. All right, now onto wall bracing. This is an example of where I used some prototype items for the photos. Basically what you're going to want to do is go 1/8 inch, take a piece of 1/8 inch across the bottom of both the HO and the O scale outer wall, long walls. You're going to cut a door opening in the O scale wall because it won't fit. The door won't fit in there with that piece of 1/8 inch going all the way across. And you may do it as required for HO. I think you can. I think the HO scale kit will the door will sit flush on that. So you may want to experiment with that and see if that's what you need to do or not. Then you want to take a piece of 1/8 inch across the top of the windows for the O scale only, and it'll be 1/16 across the top for the O scale only. You don't really see it on this picture at all, but there are some cutouts on the top. You want to stay below those cutouts because you're eventually going to put bracing in there. You're going to want to leave a 1/16 inch gap on both ends. And if you see the picture on the left, you'll see why. Because basically what's going to happen is those the sidewalls are going to fit into the end walls just so. And you'll want to do that for both sides. Don't worry about the end pieces right yet. Next, you're going to want to prepare the roof wood. If you have some of that scribed roof, excuse me, that did not break apart, then what you're going to want to do is there's a scribe mark on each of those pieces. You're going to want to transfer that mark onto the opposite side and mark that line all the way down, because what you're going to want to do is take the on the piece of construction paper that you were provided, there's 2 shorter pieces. What you're going to want to do with those is you're going to want to glue them down, because basically what you're doing is you're forming a hinge, but do not glue across the middle where that line is. So you want to do that. You want to center it, and that way it'll form the hinge when the time comes. All right, so we'll move on to our paints. The common paints that we used are in the middle. For the concrete, we used the True Color paint, which I really like it. It's a neat paint. TCP 4006, which is concrete. We just used regular old Rust-Oleum for the flat white for the bracing. One thing I did try, and I'm really not all that happy with it quite yet, is tried Mission Models metallic burnt iron, and it seems to go on too thin. So be careful with that. It's a nice, I think if you get enough of it on there, it does a nice job, but so far I haven't liked it too much. And of course we have our trusty Hunterline raw sienna. Excuse me. And then I just used basically your typical Walmart apple barrel or Craftsmart paints. For the O scale, I used that yellow, that bright yellow. And then of course with the HO scale, I used Flamencio red, and I forget what that gray is. Hang on, let me see if I can see it. It says elephant gray. So those are the colors we used for all of these kits. I forgot to put the Hunterline driftwood and apple barrel black on there. All right, so next up, we're going to do some painting. You see the O scale kit on the left. That's actually white paint. I'm not quite sure. I guess it's the lighting. That's why it came out looking gray like it did. But I put everything down on some tape that I folded against itself, and gave it a good spray, and it came out pretty decent. With the roofing, we hit both sides of that with that Hunterline raw sienna. Make sure you hit both sides. It'll help with warping. Put a lot of weight on that thing, and that should help out keeping it from warping. We painted the rest of the parts by hand, and you can see, if you take a look on the picture on the right side there, the HO version, I only painted the exposed bracing, and I think that'll cut down on the warpage also. All right, so let's see, here we are up to, remember to paint using those color categories. I think that helps out a lot. That's why this slide is in there. You'll see it down at the bottom, the concrete pad. That's only got 1 or 2 coats of that concrete on it. One thing you want to keep in mind, you see the squares on there. Those squares are the interior of the station. So if you want to put down a tile floor, let's say you want to put down a checkered pattern, you could, or you could make it a marble floor or something along those lines. But that gives you the ability to do it should you decide to take advantage of that. All right, let's see. Like previously mentioned, painted concrete and talked about the tile flooring. On the left photo here, you'll see where I missed the edges. When you paint the walls, make sure you get all of the walls. You can go back later if you miss it. That's what I ended up doing, was going back with a much smaller brush and dabbing paint into there. But be careful of that. All right. So this is the end of episode 1. Your homework is make sure you got those braces done, and then make sure you have all of your parts painted. And of course, if you haven't done so already, do your research. Are there any questions?
I have a question, Chris. What do you think about using primer on the wood pieces before you paint? Do you do that?
I don't, but I think in some situations where you've got white, sometimes that helps. The one area where a primer does seem to really be needed are on windows. One thing I tried is, instead of using an actual paint for the primer, because the doors are gray anyway, is put a coat of dull coat on there and then paint it. And I think that seems to help out a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Anyone else?
Yeah, Chris, what's the footprint of the building?
Oh, let's hang on here. Let me go find out. Which one are you talking? The HO or the O?
HO.
All right, hang on. So this is, it's about a little less than 2.5 inches wide and about 5.5 inches long. And it's still in one piece.
Yeah, thank you very much.